something of the whole romantic movement. Romantic spelled with a capital R to show that you're not using the common word romantic, but denoting a school or a group of artists. It's not doesn't have quite the same meaning as romantic in common speech. You might go to the movies to see a romantic comedy, and that's the story of two people falling in love. That's what romantic means ordinarily. But this is somewhat related and different. It does have to do with great loves and enthusiasms, but not necessarily romantic in the common sense. The Romantic movement accepted the victory of reason in the modern world and thought that was, on its own terms, successful and complete. We could certainly doubt that, and I think overall it's not true, but that's what the Romantics thought, that reason had triumphed in the modern world. But then they rejected it. They thought of that as a bad thing. That by introducing science, among other things, they had settled main questions, but in such a way that they shut out important human things, including the sources of inspiration and enthusiasm. And so a poem like this is meant to reopen our access to those things, not to try to refute reason, but just to accept its victory, and then to shut it out and to turn to other standards. Reason would make it possible just to relax and accept the facts. But Blake prefers not to do that, to do anything but relax, in order to build something that cannot even be articulated and isn't part of the reasonable world, which only has 3 dimensions. Because Blake wants access to the 4th dimension, up to heaven. Blake was not only a poet, but also a painter with a poor sense of composition or the arrangement of objects, but a vivid and lively imagination. This is a painting of his, the red dragon and the woman clothed in the sun. So later played a part in the novel and then film called Red Dragon. And here we see him again pursuing his project. That he's looking for the sources of strong enthusiasm, powerful motivating emotions. He's afraid that the modern world, where reason seems to have triumphed, will shut out those sources of enthusiasm, will shut us off from the power of emotions and the motivation it brings. And he has dedicated his mind and his creativity to try to revive it and make it available to himself and other people. Now, if we turn to the poem by Keats, the Ode on a Grecian Urn, an ode is an old-fashioned name for a poem that celebrates something. And Grecian is just something that comes from the nation of Greece. An urn is a bowl or a container, a ceramic container. And Grecian urn implies that it's old, long before modern history. The English, and Keats was English, as was Blake, the English were very enthusiastic for archaeology and enthusiastic of what they called the classical civilizations, ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And so they put a very great value on whatever artistic productions survive from those communities. And one thing that can be found sometimes that you can dig them up from the ground, the remainders of old civilizations, the pottery, the ceramics of ancient Greece, and they had a particular technique of making pictures, and it was common for them to reproduce the stories of their gods and heroes in this particular black and red fashion. Sharp lines. This is this is quite ordinary, and in Keats's day, the scholarly institutions and museums would have these as precious objects which they could put on display. It was perhaps generally thought to be very respectable, somewhat boring. And this is part of the what Keats is trying to do with the poem, and that helped it have a good reception. That he's bringing back, he's taking a fresh look and bringing this old thing into a new appreciation that a young man full of love and enthusiasm could have. An appreciation for these old objects that somehow was different from the scholar's view. The scholar somewhat dry and dusty, scientific rather than passionate, wanting to know the facts of the things. But Keats could reconceive the Grecian urn as inspirational, a source of strong emotions toward an experience of beauty and the capturing of beauty, and therefore capturing the power of it for his own soul. And it's that element that he finds a source of enthusiasm in a common object, and in some way rescues from reason the something that is in danger of being drowned in reason, overwhelmed by reason. That this Grecian urn seems to be the property of a dull academic who can tell you facts about it, when it was made, where it came from. It seems to be the imagination of a dull historian who's living in the past. But Keats, who was a young and vibrant man, definitely living in the present, found a way to be inspired and to feel an extra enthusiasm for his own life through this common object. Very rare, of course, but commonly held. Everybody knew where you could find one. Through this common object, he could find sources for his own heart and soul that it increased his vibrancy in life.